Hello there, my friends. Welcome to the Glow Up Method. This is the place where we discover who we are, the things that make us feel proud, all in this endeavor to live a life of our own design. Hello there. My name is Natasha. I am so excited to be here. And this is take two. The first one, my my phone just overheated. The temperature was too hot. And all of a sudden I was in the middle of flow and poof, there you go. And I had to wait for the phone to stop overheating because I guess I was just sitting over here just way too hot. But anyways, I'm here because I really want to talk to you today about living this life that you're proud of. Okay, right? I keep saying this. And what does that mean? What does that mean? It means designing a life for you. It means trying different things. It means accepting you are exactly where you are supposed to be at this exact time. Honestly, I don't even remember what I was talking about 5 minutes ago. And it was really good. And so I'm a little bit on the perturbed side. But I guess that wasn't the message that I was meant to give. So anyways, today's been one of those days. I have lately been feeling like not super energized, and it's probably on account of kind of some of my nutritional choices have been I have this upcoming surgery, which is in now like 2 weeks. I am a bit nervous, and so when I do get nervous, I tend to go for my comfort thing, which is my food, and I am really leaning into that. I also have this like piece behind me that's like, well, I'm going to have to stop working out for 6 weeks. So it doesn't mean I'm stopping working out now. It just means I'm kind of like, well, once we get back in it, we'll be really back in it. Sometimes it seems like I'm giving so much and for what? But I understand every little piece and every single day is what makes the difference, right? We can't always see our progress when we're experiencing it firsthand. And when we make these small goals, like my goals are small, right? Like, I mean, they seem small now. 10,000 steps before seemed ginormous, but now 10,000 steps a day is totally doable and fine. Although there are days like yesterday that I was like, this is painful, this is hard, but you keep pushing through and you realize that once it's done, you have the confidence to say you can do really hard things even when you don't want to, and celebrating that and celebrating you for making that choice, because that option to just lay down in bed and say, you know what, today's not going to matter if I don't do it, and laying down, it really wouldn't matter, probably not in so many ways, but yes, in so many different ways. So when you show up, when you do that 1 block walk, when you take that 1 shower with the daily dose of dysregulation, when you show up and care for yourself, maybe that could be, taking a little extra time with your morning routine or your self-care or meditating. You're saying yes. You're saying yes to yourself. You're saying you are worthy. You are building up this confidence. So when you have days like I had yesterday where it wasn't easy, where it wasn't like something I was excited to do, you can get through it and understand that, hey, I can do really hard things sometimes. Doesn't mean that everything has to be hard. We don't always have to be martyrs, and especially as moms, we love to be the martyr, right? We want to make sure everybody else is cared for and provided for and feels safe and is comfortable. Yet here we are trying to teach other people around us and enable this kind of a beautiful living when we're sitting in pain and squalor ourselves. So learning how to be an equation, learning how to put yourself at the table as well, learning how to not just take the leftovers or, the worst or the ends or the burnt piece or whatever, to know that you are worth the good stuff too, beyond worth. Like, quite honestly, I bet if I would step foot in your home, you do the majority of things that are so unappreciated in a long run on a daily thing, that yet you still find that you muster it up to do what you have to do to make your household and home thrive, even though sometimes you may not be. And so I'm on here to be vulnerable. I'm here to say, I've been feeling really tired lately. And I think it's this, like, are any of you entrepreneurs, or, if your main job is taking care of a household or anything, having the responsibility, like having kids, honestly, it's like being a CEO a lot of times, and you are this entrepreneur, and it's not a 9 to 5 job, right? You don't just get to check in at 9 and check out at 5 and you're done parenting or you're done with your work. No, there is no stop. So like someone like me who is an entrepreneur, who is starting this business, who is starting another project in business, who still has her family household, which is in its own business, who still has like a tiny piece of input on Chris's business. You know, my brain can't shut it off. So it's not like it's, you know, I'm really hands on, but I'm like, hey, try this. You know, I am still working on my own fitness and my own health. That's another business on its own. And so you have all these things, you're an entrepreneur, and there's no stop. There's no just, okay, we turn it off. I watch a TV show and I'm like, oh, I'm inspired. Oh, this is, you know, like, oh, this, I could use this, you know. I'm always thinking about you guys, or I'm editing, or I'm uploading. So there really isn't a whole lot of just stop. I always have my computer in my Lululemon bag, which is like my little briefcase. I can't bring my briefcase with my paperwork that I need to get through. And it expands and it contracts and expands and contracts how much I have to do. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. I love this. It gives me energy. It gives me power. And I know that in a sense, I'm giving back to my community. I'm helping my community, which makes me feel really fulfilled and happy. And I'm coming to the place where today I was so excited. Today was the day where I began this 12-week coaching program as a student. And already I feel like I've learned so much. What I've learned is, yeah, it's great that I show up here disciplined every time and I'm getting my videos in and I'm doing all these things. But so what? What is the point? Like, why am I doing this? And what's the end be? Like, what's the end all be all goal? I don't really have one. I don't have this kind of clarity in order to kind of take us to that next level. I'm just doing. I committed to this, like I committed to my 10,000 steps. I get it done. And that's just part of who I am. But I really, really want to evolve, right? I want to grow. I want to believe that everything that's happened into this point is happened exactly as it's supposed to be. I've gained the confidence to sit down in this chair and talk to you. I've gained, you know, some friends and some followers and some people who, for whatever reason, are interested in my story. It's calls to them. They found them at the right spot. And it could be they watch one episode. It could be they watch 20 episodes. It could be they've watched everyone multiple times. I'm not sure. But what I am sure of is it is my why. It is my passion to connect with you. It is my deepest desire to share my stories as a way of saying, hey, look, like I had no advantages in this life. On the contrary, I had a lot of trauma. I had a lot of really difficult things happen either directly to me or immediately around me. And those things were really, really hard mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. And I had a choice. Each time something happens, we have a choice how we either react or how we respond. And yeah, there are times in which I'm reacting and I'm going by a full on default system right hand. But there's also times I've been able to control myself, even in the chaos, and sit back and choose how to respond. And, you know, people always have input. And I remember being in couples therapy and often being referred to as this, like, almost like Pollyanna, and it's just positive. And I get it. I've been called on here before of toxic positivity. I honestly don't know what that means. And I get it. Not everybody has my perspective or my experience or the ability to look at things the way in which I have learned to survive and adapt. The way I looked at it was I had two choices. I could literally lay down and die and be depressed and hate my life because all this trauma was happening around me or to me. Or I could look for that little glimmer of hope. I could look for that little piece of positivity, that little piece of the reason why this happened instead of what happened. Because oftentimes what happened, even though it may be something enormous, takes such a small backseat compared to how we feel. You know, when I think about my sexual assault, for example, I'm not thinking about the actual experience. I'm thinking about how it impacted me, how it made me feel, how in that instant my life was altered. the way I reacted with men, the way I reacted with women, the way I processed that me saying no didn't mean anything anyway. So what's the point to even saying no? Because if I say no and somebody still forces their opinions, beliefs, whatever on me, now I'm double hurt, you know, and I kind of took it like that. And so everything that happens, right? And I can take it to like my son having a brain tumor and having to process, this sudden thing that happened right at Christmas time, and it's already a chaotic time in December. I have 3 kids with birthdays, and there was just Thanksgiving, and I didn't have time for this right now, and I already had a sick kid. I already did that. I already, you know, clocked in and clocked that out when my oldest son had his open heart surgery and was born months early and lived in the hospital for months, and I was with him, and I already did that. I already had, I don't get 2 sick kids. That's not fair. Somebody else can have a sick kid, not mine, you know? And that's kind of how I felt. And I could have had this chip on my shoulder, like, why me? Why us? I should have done this better. I should have done this. I should have paid attention to this. The doctor should have. I could sit there forever and be exhausted about this experience. But now when I think about it, and I've said it on here a million times, the first thing that comes to mind isn't the brain tumor, it isn't the seizures, it isn't the surgery, it isn't seeing him in pain or seeing him have a seizure and the aftermath of the headaches and the way he felt and the confusion and hearing his story, how he could feel what was happening, but he was unable to control his own body. I don't think about those things unless I sit here and think about those things. But what I do think about is the human kindness. I think about every person, from the janitorial staff to the person who made the tools that cut open my poor baby's, you know, scalp and skull. And I think about the doctors that spent hours and hours in school perfecting techniques. I think about the nurses who could have their own families at home, and yet they're sitting here, and they could have their own things, and they're sitting here prioritizing my baby over anything else in this time. So many things. And I thank them. And I think about my community of women who rallied around myself and my son and my entire family, who knew I was in the hospital with my son and made sure my other 3 children were fed healthy, nutritious meals. And they made food trains, and they brought balls signed by professional athletes and jerseys that were signed and card games and hospital things, and made connections to people. I know somebody that works at the Ronald McDonald House. I know that made connections, that did these things in order to make this uncomfortable, sad thing have this glimmer of hope. And so when I go through a situation, and as challenging as it is, I know that right now it's hard to see. You saw me a few months ago with my, I would talk about the separation, we're separated. And then when it really, we were actually separated, living in different houses, the impact it had on me in real time, it was hard. I felt heartbroken, I wasn't necessarily taping back then, but when my first son did his knee injury, I was heartbroken. When my second son did his knee injury 8 months later, I had this sense of strength. I knew that we would get through it. I had this assurance because we had done it once before, that I could see the beautiful things that came out of it. I could see that while I originally was so sad that he lost his collegiate soccer playing opportunities temporarily, that this whole new door had opened up for him in this virtual game. And it was something I never ever supported before, was virtual gaming. I was very strict as far as gaming goes. And still to this day, they're like, can we play any kind of, shooters or any of this stuff? I'm like, no. A sport game, yes. Anything else, it's a no. And I don't care if you're 25 or 17. If you're living in this house, these are my rules. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to see it. I don't want to know it. And I don't want you guys to either. And it's just my own little thing. But I say all that to say, I was this person who was opposed to it until, again, it came time when my son had his brain surgery, and his community, in a sense, was kind of ripped from him. So not only did he have to endure this experience, we have brain surgery and you're having strokes and seizures and all this, but also you're not in school anymore. So you're not with your friends, and you're missing out. You're not on the soccer field practicing with your friends or playing in a game. You're recovering, you're healing, you're living life different. And in a sense, I could look at it and see all that he was losing, or I could also look at it and see what he was gaining. Like I said, I mean, I look outside often and I think about it. We would sit out in the car when I would force him. He'd be like, I don't want to, I don't. You can. You have the ability to do this. Let's get up and do this. Because again, I feel like healing is this multifaceted thing. I feel like everything is. I feel like so oftentimes, when we want to lose weight, we think about the physical, what we're eating, how we're moving, and we forget that there's so much more to it. There's so much more to our mentality. What are we telling ourselves in our head? What we're saying, how we're responding, the things that are happening around us in our life. Prime example here, what are we saying in our head? I'm saying, listen, I know I'm having surgery. I'm going to kind of indulge right now. I need a little nurturing. I'm a little scared. I never originally wanted to have this kind of surgery, but I'm also realizing I also don't want this skin hanging around and burdening me. And it's a really difficult decision because, again, like in some senses, even though it's being medically covered, in some sense of the word, it's not like it's heart surgery or brain surgery, right? And so this is like a choosing. And I understand that my back has been the main punisher of my choices, and it's getting to the point where it's really difficult to navigate. And before I go mess around with like a spine surgery, let's see if taking off this skin gives it some of that relief. I mean, it has to carry around a lot of extra stuff. And so for me, it's not about necessarily how I look, although I would love to rock a pair of jeans or, put on my leggings and not have this, like, or hang over and have it not hang, right? Like, but more so it's about how I feel on the inside, the impact of how I feel. So I say this to say, it's not always about what we're doing. And so I'll be called a toxic positivity or Pollyanna anytime. I mean, even in therapy, they were like, oh, well, you're always looking for the good in stuff and all these things. And for a minute, I thought I was bad, or I thought I was wrong for doing so. And it was like, if a therapist thinks it's not normal, obviously my husband doesn't like this part about me. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm not supposed to be this way. And so it took me to do a lot of soul searching, and it took me a lot of, thinking to myself and considering, like, hey, maybe, I'm not seeing it from this other doctor. So I considered it. I considered what they were saying, and I realized my why. Why am I so positive? Why am I such an encourager? Why am I such a thing? Because I believe really tough stuff happens. Life isn't easy all the time, right? Sometimes it is, right? And those are great days. But on those days when it's not easy and you're faced with really difficult things, a relationship that's a nightmare, if you're faced with, assaults, if you're faced with illness of a loved one, if you're just not happy in your job, like, those are really tough things. So, you get loss of a friendship and you can dwell, you can, and I don't just positive it away. I like to learn from those situations. What I've learned from the brain surgery is we can all rise up together. We can help one another, and we are so much stronger together than we are apart. And that little piece of kindness, that little piece of you showing up, it may seem like nothing, right? Like the janitor just coming to do their job, he may not feel, or she may not feel, they may not feel that they're like, as important as the neurosurgeon, but they are. You are. You are a piece of the whole puzzle. And it's not just the guy that shows up with the shiny tools and the robot that helps open up his brain. No, obviously he's pretty important. I appreciate that he left my son exactly, with his personality as it should be. And, he has some minor deficits, but if it wasn't him or me, nobody else would know. Despite his hands having some deficits, he's still this amazing gamer. So, we can adapt and we can grow. And so there's so much more to be grateful for. And I think that that's the positivity. And part of my rebirth every time is I'm grateful for whatever's happening. Today, I had the crazy thing, and I'm going to tell you something super embarrassing in a sense, because I'm like, oh my gosh, does this mean I'm a slob? Does this mean, what does it mean? There's a friggin' mouse in my garage. And I told you how I feel about a bug. So can you imagine when a mouse ran in front of me and, we cleaned everything up, we set up some humane traps, and nothing is working. And so yesterday, my daughter pulls out a bag of Ruffles and she's eating them. And I'm like, yeah, that looks pretty good. Yeah, I'm going to have a couple Ruffles too. And so I eat a couple Ruffles. We leave it on the table. Every one of the kids we never all eat out of the same bag of chips, like it just doesn't happen. But for whatever reason, this Ruffle bag was really calling to us. Like if it was like shining down. One son even took chips to school, which he never does. Shared them with a friend. Yeah. So I'm eating them, and my other son comes down and goes, doesn't that look like a mouse hole in it? And I look down and I'm like, you gotta be freaking kidding me. I'm eating chips here out of this thing with this bit up mouse hole. Yeah. So if you know that book, if you give a mouse a cookie, well, now it's basically if you give a mouse a Ruffle. And originally I threw the chips away. Then I dug them out because you know what? I'm like, I'm going to use this to trap them. This bag of Ruffles is really calling everybody for some reason. So we're going to leave it out for him. And we're going DEFCON 3 here, people. This is no longer a drill. I'm going to do one last effort. I hopped on Amazon. I ordered about $200 worth of, humane things to get this dang thing out of my garage. You can live outside. Have at it. You are not welcome. If you're not paying me rent here, or doing the dishes, you are not well. If you are actually ruining the chips that we buy, you are not welcome in my home. So you are not here. I'll keep you a bridge to this, but here's the positive of it. I'm getting rid of some crap I didn't need. I'm cleaning out some more things in my garage, and I can sit here and I can be honest about the fact that there's a freaking mouse in my house, and I have to do everything I can in my power to keep it from my house, and it limited to the garage, and then limited to get the frick out of here, guy. So I will keep you informed in this, but like I say, there's a lesson, right? My lesson is I had some cookies in there for a long time and I really wasn't even into them, and I wouldn't throw them away because I bought them on sale at Costco. Well, this little mouse found these cookies and had been going to town for a long time. Lesson learned, we're not going to leave any food in the bottom shelf of that pantry anymore. And so it is what it is, and I can get upset or I can get mad or blame somebody or something else, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. And for me, it is important to see the light in any situation. So I say all this to say, I forgot I'm only going 20 minutes now. So I'm going to let you guys go there. But thank you so much for tuning in. Please go out there today and understand that you are living this life that makes you proud. And when you show up doing what you are meant to do, other people are watching and you are helping others to grow. You are inspiring them. You are motivating them. You are becoming a sense of their community. So please go out there today and give yourself a big smile and give yourself a compliment. Today, I am going to compliment myself on my ability to be aware of who I am, to understand that, yes, not everyone is going to like my positivity or my outlooks on things, but those that mind don't matter, and those that matter do not mind. And so I would also ask you today to please go out there and give someone else a big smile. Share with them a compliment. Notice something you like about them, their hair, their shoes, their outfit, their style, their personality, their energy. Share your good opinions with someone else and just watch how they glow up. Bye.